the Fedbatch versus perfusion, the productivity gains are real simple and easy to understand. In a perfusion, you have high cell densities operating at high productivity for most of the perfusion culture duration, as opposed to a fed batch where you start with a low cell density, you let the cells grow to a high cell density, and also the period of high cell density production is relatively short, maybe 3 out of 7 days or so. And in fed batch, typically the toxins are accumulating and the product is in the same mix of nutrients, metabolic byproducts, and dead cells, cell debris. Along with that come enzymes that can chew up your product. So the quality by design is so much better with a perfusion. You have a higher consistency of product because product is not degraded extracellularly, and you have high productivity throughout the months or longer, potentially, typically 3 months long of a perfusion duration, whereas in a fed batch it's only maybe 10 days. Yes, if the product has a higher value than the cost of materials going into making it, which is a no-brainer, that would be the case for all the biological products, typically 100-fold or more, then it is a no-brainer that the cost of goods is not an issue. What becomes an issue is the quality of the product as well as how much you can make it. And so in a perfusion, you can make a lot of it, and people will always say, oh, the cost of goods that are going in, you have to send in so much media, etc. That is a red herring. It is simply, if your product is 100 times more valuable, and if you're making it, why worry about the one that is 1% in the cost? So cost of goods is a non-issue. You just get a higher quality, higher productivity in perfusion. The bottlenecks created downstream in fed batch versus perfusion, there are different aspects to them. There are bottlenecks even for fed batch, and clearly in the same context there are bottlenecks for perfusion as the way people understand it. If the continuous production in a fed batch is integrated smoothly with a continuous downstream process, then there really are not any bottlenecks. You don't even need a harvest or a holding tank in between different stages. And of course, this requires a change in thinking from a typical downstream processing aspects. Instead of doing batch chromatography, for which you need to store material before and store material after, if you can switch to a continuous chromatography, you will have no or very minimal requirement of a holding tank between the different processing steps. And therefore, bottlenecks can be an issue if the flow of material has not been thought through well. But it is an issue that can be easily solved in many, many ways, including, for example, getting rid of a chromatography step even. There are, say, for many biological processes, such as an antibody production process, there are some novel methods that we are looking at, which is to precipitate the antibody by adding cold ethanol at the right pH. And at that condition, it's a well-known process of cone fractionation of blood from about maybe 70 years ago. That process can be modified to precipitate antibody in a continuous mode. And if you do that, people have been thinking batch precipitation all the time, but no, there's a better way to do it to avoid any bottlenecks, is to do a continuous precipitation, and we are developing some novel methodologies to do the continuous precipitation. So theoretically, there should be very minimal bottlenecks, which can be avoided.